Welcome back. I know you're raring to go, so let's talk about Lambeth. But in order to talk about Lambeth, we must put it in its context so that you really do understand how it fits into the Anglican Communion and what its purpose is. The Anglican Communion, then, is served by 4 instruments of communion. Sometimes we call them as the instruments of unity. They serve our large and diverse family by including voices from all over the world. So here they are, and I'll give you a brief overview of each one. The first one is the Archbishop of Canterbury. The second one is the Lambeth Conference. The third one, the Anglican Consultative Council. And the next one is the Primate's meeting. So let's start with the Archbishop of Canterbury. You know, the Archbishop of Canterbury has duties in a diocese just like any other bishop. But in addition to that, in the Anglican Communion, the Archbishop of Canterbury is seen as our spiritual leader and seen as an outward sign of unity throughout the whole Anglican Communion, wherever it is found. Since the year 597, the Archbishop's see, the Archbishop's chair, has been at Canterbury. The Archbishop of Canterbury is seen as the focus for unity for the other 3 instruments of communion of the Anglican Communion that we are discussing here. The Archbishop of Canterbury is the one who calls the once in a decade, every 10 years, Lambeth Conference. The Archbishop of Canterbury chairs the meeting of the primates, and he is the president of the Anglican Consultative Council. Now, the Archbishop does not have authority over the bishop or the primate of any other diocese. You remember what I said last time. But the Archbishop of Canterbury is considered the first among equals in relation to the primates of every single province. The Anglican Communion consists of 42 provinces, and each province is in communion with the See of Canterbury. So in the next section, I'm going to describe for you what a province and a primate is. The Lambeth Conference takes place approximately every 10 years. Bishops from all around the world are invited to attend by the Archbishop of Canterbury. If the Archbishop of Canterbury doesn't invite you, you don't go. The Lambeth Conference dates back over 150 years. The first one was held in 1867, and there were 76 bishops present. And it's happened approximately every 10 years ever since. The last conference was held 13 years ago. Obviously, COVID had something to do with that, and there were other disagreements in the Lambeth Conference that caused the Archbishop of Canterbury to say, we need a time of prayer. So we had that first, and then we had the pandemic. The theme of Lambeth Conference in 2022 is God's Church for God's World. Walking, listening, and witnessing together. There will be over 1,000 active bishops present. Lambeth conferences in the past have discussed church matters and issues of global concern, including the persecuted church, refugees, faith, marriage, the family, human sexuality, the ministry of women, racism, war and peace, the environment. The environment, so important these days. Lambeth talks about Christian ethics, and the Christian way of life as God would have it lived. Alongside a very full program of counsel, prayer, Bible study, worship service, and ceremonies at Canterbury Cathedral, Lambeth traditionally involves a wide number of guest speakers and dignitaries. Events have been attended by Her Majesty the Queen and former Prime Ministers. The Primate's meeting. Before talking about the Primate's meeting, we need to know what a province is and what a primate is. A province. Talking about provinces in the Anglican Communion can be a little bit tricky. For us Canadians, for example, when we think of a province, we think about where we live and what we see on a map of Canada. In the Anglican Communion, we understand provinces in relation to a geographical area and as a grouping of bishops and a diocese. We are members of the province of Canada. To be recognized province in the Anglican Communion, there has to be a common constitution, and its geographical and political area must allow for good communications and be shown to build authentic community across all linguistic or national or cultural boundaries. The people of a province must be a community of concern that unites them in a larger community of worship. We are part of the province of Canada. It takes up the whole church from sea to sea. Now, it's important to remember that within the province there will be many dioceses. Each diocese has a bishop, and only that bishop has authority there. The unity that we treasure takes an awful lot of humility, sacrifice, work, gentleness, respect, and love. So a province then is, the best way for me to explain it to you is that the country of Canada, the Anglican Church of Canada, is a province in the Anglican Communion. A primate. The use of the title primate refers to a bishop who has been elected by the General Synod of any national church. Our Primate Linda was elected at a General Synod, and that person serves as the chief Archbishop of the province that is within the Anglican Communion. Like the Archbishop of Canterbury, the Primate does not have authority in any other diocese. Linda, our Primate, needs to be invited to visit our diocese when she comes. But having said that, we have a great deal of respect and love for our Primate. We elect a Primate because we trust in that ministry. So the Primate leads national meetings, travels throughout the church in the world and across our country, and then brings back the voice of the larger church to the province. The Primate serves as a sign of unity in the province. The Primate reminds us of the call of Christ to be as one. So now we're ready. What is the Primate's meeting? The Primate's meeting is made up of the chief pastors or the Archbishop of each province. They come together, and remember, there are 42 provinces. So these primates help represent the larger family in a meeting. We expect our leaders to come together, to take counsel, and to share what the Spirit of Jesus is saying to the church. All of our primates come together, and then they go back to their provinces and they share what they have learned. They share what they have discerned. The Archbishop of Canterbury convenes the meetings of the primates and facilitates all the different sessions that they have. And that primate of each different province upon the invitation of the Archbishop of Canterbury, actually sit in the chairs to direct the discussion. So there's this incredible diversity at the Primate's meetings. There's no time set for these meetings, but they hold them at regular intervals throughout the world. And so the Archbishop of Canterbury has the responsibility of making that happen. The most recent meeting was at Lambeth Palace in London in March of 2022. Because of COVID-19, the meeting was sort of, diverse. Some attended by internet and some were in person. So as soon as the Primate, the Archbishop of Canterbury rather, recognizes the need for the Primates to come together, it happens at his call. And of course, we expected them to meet before Lambeth. All right, let's move on to the next instrument of unity, the Anglican Consultative Council. The ACC, as we call it sometimes, is a body that represents all Anglicans wherever they are found. Importantly, this council includes members of the laity, it includes archbishops, it includes bishops, priests, and deacons. And it includes youth delegates as well. Every province will send 2 or 3 representatives. The role of the Anglican Consultative Council, ACC, is to enable sharing and work of the churches of the entire Anglican Communion, to exchange information between the provinces and churches, and to help coordinate a common action. And that might include working against poverty, discrimination, climate change, anything that affects the world and the bigger picture. In other words, social justice is incredibly important, and there has to be a common tie, isn't there, for justice and equality. The voice of the council provides reflection and advice throughout the whole Anglican Communion, and that translates back into each diocese and into our pulpits, we hope, if our clergy and our lay people are studying and doing the work to share this. The council pursues ways of developing common policies within the church in relation to our mission. The council seeks unity with every other denomination and with world religions. Wherever the Spirit of God is found, we need to be in unity. Meetings are held around the world approximately every 3 years. The next meeting that's been planned is going to be in Accra, Ghana, in February 2023. So now we have a brief overview of the 4 instruments of unity, and I invite you now to take a few moments to listen to our Primate as she shares with us her thoughts and her teaching around the Lambeth Conference.
Greetings to the Diocese of Central Newfoundland. Thank you, Bishop John, for the invitation to reflect briefly on the Lambeth Conference with you. In just over a month, bishops from around the globe will be traveling to Canterbury, England, to gather in the Lambeth Conference for worship, for fellowship, and to consult on the life and ministry of the Anglican Communion. The last Lambeth Conference was held in summer 2008. I had been a bishop just since February 2008, so was very new. It was somewhat overwhelming to be there amidst some 700 and plus bishops, only 18 of whom were women, and with their spouses. Bishop Michael Bird, the former Bishop of Niagara, and myself walked together in the opening procession into Canterbury Cathedral. We looked at each other and we asked, how did we get here? The gift of the Lambeth Conference is to meet with others of faith across time and across geography, to ask what God is calling us to now. It can be very easy to focus only on my parish or my diocese and lose sight of all that God is doing around the world and in very different ways. At Lambeth, in Bible studies with bishops who differ from you, at meals where conversations are in many languages, in plenary sessions reflecting on the issues that face each of us differently, you are invited to see a bigger picture of God's world and God's church. It puts our own needs in perspective and invites us into humility and compassion in new ways. It is very easy when we disagree to simply shout at each other across social media and make assumptions about their values and views. It changes everything when you sit in person together, pray together, and listen deeply to why they hold different views from your own and understand their culture and challenges. It is about relationships and about the context to which we each have been called by God. This Lambeth Conference will call us to reflect together and then invite us to take back to our homes a series of God's calls to action to implement in each context. Please pray for the life of the Lambeth Conference, for all the bishops and spouses attending, and for those not present for a variety of reasons, and for a spirit of friendship in faith and unity of purpose. Pray for the Archbishop of Canterbury, Justin Welby, in his leadership of the conference, and give thanks that we belong to such a vast, diverse family of faith. In that family, God is being revealed in new ways for a new time. Share with us in that by your prayers. Thanks be to God.